All rise. The pod is now in session. We are back with another episode. And well, at least in our
check in
early this morning. I am Henri. I am one of your Supreme Court justices or hosts, if you will. Everybody else want to go ahead and let people know who is who.
Chris, I'm the baby of the group, so sitting here with the elders as usual, the old men in the room.
Shit, we all on now.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say, right?
Yeah, well, this is the big bear. You know what it is. It's that time. It's that time to get it cracking and really discuss and really dive into what we about to dive into today, you guys. This is a special one. I mean,
oh yeah, this one.
Yeah, this
we
one
had
right
a whole
here. Yeah.
For y'all who were listening, we had a whole different docket. We had a whole different roster of topics we were going to tackle this weekend, and that went out the window. Obviously, as many of you probably know now, have caught wind of it. Hopefully, you don't need to be a fan of the NBA or basketball. One of the biggest trades. I'm talking about the Lakers really made it a blockbuster night, trading for superstar Anthony Davis for none other than international star Luka Doncic. That is
that's why I was sitting there.
Blockbuster doesn't seem to do it justice, to be honest with you. Like I can't think of a trade that's been trade.
I don't think we've seen anything prior to the trade deadline where you have two players of that caliber both being shipped out at the same time, and the details around how it all came to be. The fact that, according to reports, that Dallas just called the Lakers. They didn't shop. They didn't do anything. They had AD in mind and said, "This is what we want. This is what we need. Are you down?" And Pelinka just hit the button. Yeah, let's do it. Bear, as the other Laker fan on this pod, we're fans of basketball, but what was your initial thought? Because I knew this was fake. Like, I had to verify this 5-6 times through a couple of different outlets before I sent the text to you guys to say, hey, what just happened?
You know what? Personally, it's so unbelievable because we haven't seen anything like this, especially in this magnitude, and I don't think in any sport. I mean,
it transcends the NBA. No doubt.
This is much deeper than that. And then it has, we don't know the backstory. Like, there's really no information out on it because clearly there has to be something. Why you trade, arguably one of the best NBA players that's playing right now in the game at 25. What made you and it's seeming, I mean, he's injured still, but when you just think about it and then you see who he traded for, when you think about what they could have, I mean, if they just would at least put it out there on notice and said, you know what, we're open for suggestions or any talks if, we're willing to see what's going on, what you have to offer. They did none of that because the haul they could have gotten for Luka, you just think about it.
Think about the Gobert trade. Well, I mean, how much they got in there? That was 3-4 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert?
So imagine what Luka would have got. You understand what I'm saying? Like, just the haul that he would have got in, just the offers that would have come in. But it didn't happen like that. Like, they didn't go to anyone. And I know, my Laker fans and my non-Laker fans, I know what they're going to say. LeBron helped make this move. And I'll say this. I don't think so. I don't think he had anything to do with
this. This doesn't have his fingerprints on it. I agree with you on that 1,000%.
This smells and it spells that it's the end for LeBron, the era. I think they've moved on. They're not going to take any more suggestions. We've tried that.
They don't have to.
We haven't won. No, there's no need.
Yeah.
And now I did hear some reports like a couple of days ago that before the trade deadline that LeBron and AD both said, we don't want you to sacrifice or mortgage the future for any moves that you need to make for us. And I just, I thought that was unselfish of them, but it was odd. Like, you don't want to win. Like, but then again, I know AD did express the main thing was him. He didn't want to play the 5. So oddly enough, he goes to Dallas and he's not going to have to play the 5. But I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think it was some friction there or something, like something behind the scenes with AD? Mm-hmm. But then again, no, because Dallas called. So the real big issue is, what is up with Luka? Some are saying that, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
And I think, I don't know if you're hearing reports about his health and, the lack thereof as far as him not staying in shape and having these soft tissue injuries that are, attributed to this not being in shape. But he's only 25. And I think there was something, when we will hear more about it. I figure by Monday morning about like, what were the issues? Because to give up a 25-year-old that hasn't even hit his stride or in his prime yet, but he is arguably, he's in the top 5 conversation today in the NBA, and just to get rid of him,
again,
there has to be. But and that's what. Well, I'm hearing something about like literally someone had to take the beer out of his hand. Like, bro, you need to get in shape. What are you doing? But and up until this point, that's been an issue of his, and we know as great as you can be, if you don't take care of your body in the NBA, it's going to be a problem. So, I'm upset. I don't like. As a Laker fan, this does not make us, directly. It doesn't make us better instantly. This is gonna be a 2-3 year process if there's any more trades. That's another thing. I have to believe
you still got a first round draft pick, so I can't believe that they would have made this trade without something else already cooked.
It has to be, and maybe it's not for this season. I don't think it's for this season, and that's going to be the unfortunate thing. So, what does that say for LeBron? Is that one of those things? Because look, you think about it now, everything kind of looks clear. The whole Bronny shit thing. That's why they did it, because they knew that LeBron James maybe was just going to finish out the contract and that'll be it. Are we looking at maybe one more year for LeBron and that's it?
I don't know what that timetable looks like. But I will say, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, the Lakers traded an NBA superstar for an international star, right? Which is great for the Laker brand. Like that is right on that is on brand with the brand, if you know what I mean. Like the Lakers going out and getting an international superstar in Luka Doncic. I mean, and going forward at 25, he's got, a number of years ahead of him. Like he has a hell of a runway. But the irony of this trade, pardon me, is for as much as we've been critical of Anthony Davis's health and injuries and missing games, last 2 seasons he has been healthier than Luka Doncic.
He's been the anchor.
He's played more games. He has been the anchor.
Yeah.
And Luka, for as much as we've gotten on guys like Zion Williamson for his lack of shape, there hasn't been much spoken on Luka's unpreparedness, if you will. Like, Robert mentioned earlier, Michael Finley, I believe he's in player development, or he's one of the assistant coaches.
Yeah,
had to literally take a beer out of his hand. Like they want to get him off the beers. Obviously, during the season, like you can do what you want in your own time. But I mean, we need you to be healthy, big fella. But Luka is, for all of his unicorn qualities, has not been known to be at tip-top shape. He's not a guy he's not a Kobe, hit the gym 3-4 in the morning and has worked up a sweat by 7 a.m. He's not a LeBron spending over $1 million on his body every summer. He's young, so he has a chance to get it together, which, it's funny that I'm saying that, but we haven't extended that much grace to Zion, maybe because he's missed so much time, it's hard to. Whereas Luka's missed time, but not nearly as much as Zion has. But I think that's one of the ironies. Like Anthony Davis has now found for whatever reason, he's found somewhat of a stride in terms of his health. And he's been on the court. He's been available. Like that was one of his weaknesses, obviously, was his availability. Yeah. We called him street clothes. Right. He was one of those guys, Tracy McGrady type of dude, where you can count on him being on the sideline wearing whatever, dripped out in the latest fashion or suit, whatever the case is. But now you trade him for a guy who's more, quote unquote, injury prone, which again, we don't like to use that term because it almost is non-existent nowadays. Like we know whether or not soft tissue injury kind of, that pretty much signifies that you're probably not as in shape as you need to be. So I don't know if that's what it is. I think now I want to say it's like a strained calf injury or something like that he's had since Christmas. He may be joining the Lakers by All-Star break or shortly after that. So I don't even know how this thing will even look. But right now, I don't know how it works because you got LeBron, who is the primary ball handler for the Lakers and has been for quite some time. But now you have Luka, another guy who's a high usage guy.
Not really. If you look at what it's been last 15, 20 games, is Austin.
Yeah.
Reeves has really been the one who's kind of flourished at handling the ball and taking away some of that responsibility. Bron's been able to get into the post a little bit more. But just kind of going back, when I looked at this, I was like, hold on. Okay, it is on brand. Let's get that out the way. To have an international superstar, arguably top 3, worst case scenario, top 5 guy in the league now in a Laker uniform at the age of 25, you check a couple of boxes, right? Because you were trying to figure out what does it look like after LeBron. You got that now. With that being said, as an organization who calls you in the dark of night and says, I want your big man for our generational talent.
Yeah.
I want your 3-and-D wing young talent, and I want a first-round pick. I'm not putting this out to the league because there would have been much better offers. There would have been much better offers. So they really were locked in, and I think if you look at that connection to the Lakers, you got Jason Kidd, who's already coached him and knows, hey, look, he wants to be a forward. That's what we need. Right, we've got Kyrie, so really we had an assortment of riches at the guard spot. We got Klay Thompson, so we kind of got the Trinity. We got a guy who can get downhill and hit an open shot. We have a guy who's on the back end of his career, but if it's still left open, can knock down an open shot. You've got role players, and now you have a defensive-minded guy who's going to be out of this world because he's playing the spot he wants to play and doesn't have to play the 5. So I looked at that, but from the red flag immediately set in, and Bear, I think this speaks to what you were talking about, is where my first thought was like, you get rid of that? And all you hear about is the amount of frustration Dallas has had. You hear comments like they felt like they were held hostage by Luka, his attitude, his antics, his lack of conditioning. Keep in mind, Luka was eligible for a Supermax this summer.
Which is null and void at this point.
So
because
now,
of the trade.
He no longer gets that Supermax. And you look at what the tax implications now become moving to LA, they kind of screwed him. So to me, that parting of ways wasn't amicable. That wasn't a let's look out for you. It was we know where you want to be. We know who will take you if we make the call. To get to that point before the trade deadline, to where you feel like I have to get rid of this guy, that concerns me. The other thing you did, you have no balance for this year. So if you don't have something else locked and loaded, this season is a waste. You're going to have to get rid of Austin Reeves. Where do you put him?
That's a good question.
You got Luka, you've got Bron, you've got 2 ball-dominant guys who have to figure it out. And to his credit, Bron has always been able to figure it out. But what are you going to do with Austin Reeves? Make him just the jump shooter now?
Yeah, Austin Reeves,
you know what I mean?
Spot-up guy. We don't want to reduce
like that. It just doesn't. And it goes against everything you've been building him to be now. So he finally got a groove. You guys are winning quality games. I think they're 8 out of the last 10 or something like that. And now you got that. There is no big that you're going to bring in that's Anthony Davis. I don't care who you go grab right now. And if you do, it's going to take an assortment of riches to where you're going to gut the roster again. So what's the move? Is it Walker Kessler? Is it, who are you going after? No matter who you get, you're not going to fill that void, but who can you grab to even sustain what you guys were already rolling on? And that's the part where I'm like, there's more to this Luka thing.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people who are like, in true Laker fashion, they get what they want, they get what they need. And I see that long term, but there's some asterisks there. That's an if Luka's in shape.
Right.
Basically, Dallas said, we are betting on, based on what we've seen thus far, this man will not be healthy. He will not take his conditioning serious. He will continue to be a headache because that's who he is. He's a diva. We're out of this game. I think it's wide.
You know what I think it was? Maybe the Mavericks thought, for all of his talent, this is not the guy to lead us to a championship. Like, as great as he can be potentially, like, he's a generational talent. He's an international superstar. But the question is he the guy for you, for that team? And maybe, the Dallas Mavericks would know firsthand. They would have the most intimate understanding of who Luka Doncic is.
Hollywood story.
Oh, yeah, right.
Sure. They're seeing behind the scenes.
And I hope that, but it happens. Somebody's going to get fleeced in a trade. And then sometimes, every now and again, you get a trade that's a pretty much equal value, where there are no real losers. But maybe the Mavericks know something that the Lakers don't. You know what I mean? Maybe maybe the Mavericks feel like they've seen the absolute best of Luka Doncic, and he won't get any better. He won't take his career any more serious than he has. Yeah. There's always that. But again, it's the irony that in both Austin Reeves, he's found his groove in terms of his role on the team, and he's excelled at it. AD has found his groove in his health, and now you kind of scrap all that and start all over again for a possible when you already had a bird in the hand, now you're going for the two in the bush. What does that look like long term? And that is an interesting question. Like, what other moves do you make? Dallas, on the other hand, which oddly enough, a lot of the odds makers have kind of shortened their odds to about ninth, where the Clippers sit, which is kind of weird. And I'm like,
really high.
Yeah,
I mean, like how? With
I don't,
no defenders now.
No defenders, no bigs. Like you don't like. I mean, you've addressed the shooting to some degree, but you don't have knockdown guys at all five positions. Yeah, and also in Dallas, you got Derek Lively. So now again, AD does not have to worry about getting reinforcements for the five, so he can sit at the four. You still got Kyrie, obviously. The only problem is we know traditionally and historically in the NBA, the point guard and power forward combination is like the slowest road to an NBA championship. And there have been few cases where that is actually bore fruit. I mean, you look at like the Utah Jazz, that pick and roll John Stockton and Karl Malone team. They never really got it done, and that's like that's the longest road to a championship. But we'll see how that shakes out. Should they make some more moves before the trade deadline? But the Lakers, I hope, fingers crossed, for their sake, have some other moves coming down the pipeline that solidify that lineup and gives them somebody. I don't know, what are their needs at this point. At the five, well, obviously you need a big.
I mean, wing defenders, you need a 5 or 2. Like I mean, if you're banging on Hayes, like we're done. He was barely suitable to back.
Yeah,
I mean, I get it.
He gets more minutes now. That's a damn show. Yeah,
correct. So from that perspective, yeah, that's cool. But when you look at what we were getting from AD, you're looking at 25, 30 points
and 12. Come on now.
12, 15 boards, depending on what the day looks like. It's
2, 3 blocks.
That's going to be rough.
Yeah, and you might argue that
how you make that up.
You could make the argument that Luka is a better player.
For sure.
AD is certainly a better fit for what you needed at this time.
Yeah, correct. But when you're talking about overall, when you look at the top of the West and who we have to go through, we gave up the one chip that was needed to even compete. You gave away a big man. Like the top 3 teams, that's what we're going to need against them. So when you see that and you see moving forward even for the future, we have to go after a 5 because just looking at the future, in the near future, the Spurs, they're going to get some pick. They're going to figure out this thing and help out Wemby. That's going to be a problem once they get all that sorted out. And I don't think they're too far off. And then when you hear the reports and everybody's thinking that Dallas is going to be like bad, like how?
Yeah, I don't see that.
I don't see it. I think even to the fact that they're saying that AD does not fit in, and I'm like, are you serious? They got for the immediate, and you can look at it just because the age of the team, it works out for them. For the Lakers, long term, yes. Now this is everything lines up and goes well. That somehow, and I think maybe this is the idea, he stays with LeBron. Bron he kind of, I guess they feel like he can listen to Bron.
Mentors him, he respects him.
Kind of get him on some type of regiment where he starts thinking about his body and doing better with his body and working out and getting strong. But that's a big if. Let's say, but I still don't think, I mean, just think about it. LeBron won't be there long enough. I just truly don't think so. I think now it makes sense why they did, why they drafted his son, because I think he knew, and maybe he's not telling us, but he kind of told them like, hey, end of this contract is up. I'm done. Because for them to get rid of AD when, yes, we were in at the top, but we were going to go to the playoffs, and who knows what could have happened since then. Why didn't we go after a 5? Why, if these things don't make any sense, then you thought about just going back, going after Melo again, and there were talks about bringing him in, and that didn't happen. And you said something, Chris, that I think we really need to look into. When you think about the basketball moves and what you would do as a GM, and even from a business perspective, you want the most for your talent. AD, as great, as good of a player he is, the haul they could have got in is something you couldn't ignore that. So for them to make the move that they made, it was, and also, like you said, the money, because he was open for the max, which was like, what, 350 or something like that? And
I think 345, something like that, yeah.
And for that not to happen, now he's no longer eligible because he when you trade it, you can't have the max. and you were in a place that, tax-wise was much better. Now you come to LA and you go, I would think though he's going to take like 150 for 3 years, something like that. But still, at this point, you're
On the
not going to
way
be,
out,
well, you're not right.
they screwed him. Like
But
that was not something you do to somebody who
what?
you have a good relationship with. That to me is one of those, look, cool, you want to be immature, you want to not take it serious. Cool. I'll show you what that actually looks like, because he lost tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
I'm
he
like,
did.
that's a little bit interesting. The flip side though is
He's in
AD gets
LA.
everything he wanted
Yeah, he
gets
definitely
played
from
does.
the four.
Right.
And keep in mind, AD had to waive his trade clause in order for this to happen. Or his trade kicker. I'm sorry, not his clause, but his trade kicker,
Sure
which
did.
saved Dallas maybe about $6-7 million, which puts them under the luxury tax.
Yeah.
So that also shows that I'm with it. Yeah, let's get out of here. I'm tired of playing the five. Y'all don't seem to be serious. Let me get into what seems to be more competent management. And if you're AD looking across the landscape of the two teams right now, you're walking into post All-Star break like, let's make this run. I still got Kyrie Irving. I still got Clay, and yes, veteran guys who can contribute, but they are in a much better position than the Lakers are today. If Luka gets it together,
obviously.
yeah, they're in trouble.
Right. But that's given that we make the right move. That's given that we get the right coach, because who's to say the coach now is going to be, see, there's a lot
What's
of
his
what
teammate?
ifs.
JR was his teammate in Dallas.
Right.
Not JR, JJ. Yeah.
JJ, yeah. Yeah.
So my whole thing, So my
There's
whole thing
always
is
that.
it's a whole lot of what ifs. And when it comes down to it, I think that the Lakers, management, they simply said, hey, we're not going to go through any hoops. We don't think we can. And maybe they asked them, hey, do you think with this team? Well, no, they didn't have to ask it. If you seen some of the comments that LeBron made, was saying basically, it was right what the coach was saying. We're going to have to play near perfect ball to have a chance with as the team is currently constructed. So that was kind of, he was echoing the same thing that JJ was saying, which I'm pretty sure resonated with, Pelinka. And they probably had some type of sit downs about, hey, guys, we can't, because, we've seen the experiments that have been had and how they didn't work out. We're not going to mortgage any more futures. There's not a lot of moves we can make unless we make some, big moves that could hurt us down the future. So down the line. So let's just say this. If you want to get traded, and I don't even think that trade was even talked about or even known about prior. It was just
would have
more
thought Luka would be on the blocks ever
at 25.
So the fact that they called them,
which lets me know,
literally, and was like, yeah,
that lets me know that Dallas knew what they wanted. Because they could have gotten, they couldn't have, listen, they could have gotten the King's ransom.
Draft picks.
They could have gotten whatever they wanted anywhere else, but they wanted Anthony Davis for a reason. So clearly, there's something that they see in him that is part of a building block to a future. And also, maybe, just maybe, I don't know much about this new ownership group in Dallas. I don't know much about Miriam Adelson and Patrick Dumont. I understand that Mark Cuban is still minority owner. I think he owns up to 20-something% of the team still. It could be something as simple as they didn't want to commit $345 million to a player they didn't think was worth that money. It could be that simple.
Yeah.
And in return, they get a player that they actually need to make a legitimate run at the championship. And now they throw up the issues they had last year against Boston. You have an all-world defender in Anthony Davis, who's at a position that he's comfortable playing. You got Derek Lively still. You got Kyrie. I mean, you still got enough pieces.
Step out with Porzingis. I got you. No big deal.
And other things, as of late, we've witnessed Clay kind of find his shot again.
Yeah.
That team is I wouldn't say loaded for bear, but I would say they're probably in a better position they were last year, which is why I don't understand the championship odds. It's kind of weird to me that they kind of lost some steam in this trade, which I'm like, they may, again, listen.
It may work better.
DeBarge said it best, time will reveal. But this will be in a very short period of time. This won't be years. We'll know by season's end who actually got the better of this trade. And I fear it could be Dallas at this point. I don't.
How about this?
As crazy as that might sound to some people.
Yeah.
Even from a business side, at the very least, let's say it doesn't work out this year and the writing's on the wall, even in Dallas. It's like, this isn't going to work. They have tradable assets. They still have Kyrie, who, if they needed to, if they said we're going to just, start with a blank sheet of paper, AD and Kyrie can get them some draft picks. They could do it. For the Lakers, I'm mad because as a Laker fan, we just gave up. We're done for the season. I don't care what anyone says. Think we're going to make a run. We gave up for this season and possibly next season. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know, because if the team as constructed without any movement, you have to believe that the Lakers they're going to be okay with that. And here's the question though, because from a business standpoint, I understand it. I get it. You have the opportunity when you went and evaluated and said, you know what, I don't think we're going to make it. Yeah, we'll make the playoffs. We may, possibly get deep, but LeBron's not getting any younger. Although, AD's been playing well and he's been relatively healthy. Do we said, you know what? Do we push it and say, let's go for it one more year? Or we just say, and I think that's exactly what they were looking at and said, you know what? This came about. I need to take it because when the next time, you don't know if you're going to get a player like Luka. I get that. But we don't know. And so you see what I'm saying? So I think that from the business standpoint, they did the right thing. From a fan's perspective, no, not whatsoever. That looked bad. But
because you don't know how bad Dallas wanted to move him. You know what I mean? You don't know if you could have been like, hey, let's revisit this in the summer. Clearly, Dallas, if they didn't make it to the trade deadline for a top 5 talent in the league, they were done.
Which again, and that gives me some suspicion about Luka and what they know about him.
For sure.
That's alarming. I don't know how nobody.
Well, no, not necessarily, Bear, because you think about it. Our biggest mess as Laker fans, whether it was with Magic being on a late night talk show, wink, wink, and all this stuff, we don't know how to shut up.
Yeah.
These other teams recognize.
Yeah.
Jim
might be pulled.
Allegedly, that's what kind of got them canceled out of the Kawhi Leonard sweepstakes. Was their inability to stay quiet about it.
I just wanted to see if you could hold off and just be quiet, and you couldn't. Cool.
Radio
get
silence.
Out of here.
Yeah, they didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah,
clearly.
But if that's the case, and to be honest, it may be a slight to the Lakers as, hey, they're going to go for whatever. Because you've kind of got a reputation where it's like, look, they're looking at the name, but they have no clue what they're actually getting into. And so, if there's any way to push this through and get exactly what we know we need, nobody to do that with better than the Lakers, because they're just going to be like, let's do it. Oh, yeah. We's got the ball, we's got the Luka, and it's like, if we show them, you might be in trouble.
If we show the Lakers a brand new shiny toy, they'll go for it. That's who they are as a franchise. That's their history, right? It's the brand.
Imagine, like Luka's he's a great player, great scorer. Could you imagine that Luka he stays healthy, right? Which is great, but he still doesn't play defense. He doesn't get better in that aspect. And I
got to give up on defense. That defense is the least of my concerns. I don't think that's in his. I don't think that's in his DNA.
His
I think the best case.
Clearly,
that's what scares me, because that means you have to put it. You thinking once LeBron's gone, you're going to have to put together a hell of a roster, and that's where I'm not confident, because this fell in the Lakers' lap. Come on now. This fell in their lap. This isn't something that. Once again, man,
this is the rich get richer.
Yeah.
Right. But it's what can you do with it? Are you going to put the pieces together? That's the thing. Is JJ going to be the answer? I don't know if he's going to be the answer. I think that when you look at it, the Celtics got away with the Celtics back to back. The coaches that they've had some good coaches there. The Lakers, as long as
who were just running neck and neck and when one parted. And you look at what he's doing in Houston. They should have sent. They should have sent Ime a ring like, hey,
no doubt.
We know this didn't work out the way it should have, but
because he's a hell of a coach, and what he's doing in Houston, Houston is on the rise. Houston is one of, and you think about that, because you got OKC and Houston; those two top teams. They're young, and they're. I mean, I just don't like. Man, this is hard. Because I'm excited about
the future. There is the fact that we were doing well. We started to hit a groove, and it's finally looked like, hey. You've got the pieces in the right places. It took Max Christie a little longer than we thought, but then it's like, we got a 3-and-D guy now. Okay, cool. He may take a little time. Him with Dorian Finney-Smith, cool. He had he shot 5 for 6 from 3 the other night. It's like,
yes, he did.
You know you're not going to get that every night, but between the two of them and both of them being able to defend and make up for the fact that you don't have a defensive-minded 5, but a guy that can rim run. LeBron's still playing at a high clip. Austin Reeves figuring out how to be an effective point guard, penetrate into the lane and getting people open. They started to actually run in a way where it was like, we're fifth in the West right now. Okay, they're hitting a stride.
Yeah.
You now sacrifice that for the unknown, and the unknown is scary. Even though the name is Luka, this could end up being the greatest trade the Lakers ever had,
or the worst,
or one of the worst.
Or
because, like you said, they were all settling into a stride in so many different ways. The Lakers, again, Davis with his health, Reeves with his role. Even like you said, Max Christie was kind of coming along, which he had time to develop. Like there was no real rush on Max.
And he had
Max
youth
Christie
on his side, which was smart of them to grab him.
But I can't get over the fact that last we seen AD in a Lakers uniform, the man went off for 42 and 23 rebounds.
Right.
And
that's crazy.
That's, you know what?
And it's time to punt.
What I'm curious about is what, if any, was Jason Kidd's role in all this? What say did he have?
Everything.
That would tell me a lot about this trade.
Remember, right? He was on our staff when we won in the bubble, so don't get it twisted. He has a relationship with him.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, how did they keep this so close to the cuff where none of the NBA insiders even there? I mean, you didn't hear about any of this about there's possible trade for Luka or anything, and for that matter, you didn't know that the Lakers would even think about putting AD up there on the blocks.
Again, as far as we know, the Mavs kind of slid in their DMs on the late night. It wasn't like it was
literally.
This wasn't a broadcasted move by any means. Yeah,
they didn't. That's the only thing
they didn't test the market. They didn't put Luka out there to see what they could fetch for him. They secretly approached the Lakers. Like this was largely of their doing.
AD had to approve of it at some point.
Right. Of course.
We know that. So that means to me that the Lakers made it abundantly clear, this is it. We're not moving any more chips. That even to the point where we don't want to see how far you can get. We just don't believe it could happen. And I want to know how did JJ Redick play a role in that? Did they ask him to give his opinion? Because I think they left LeBron out on this one. I think LeBron James,
because he would have fought. I think even as much as he is a fan of Luka, to see what they were doing, because love or hate it, there's a selfish component to how you want to end your career. You don't want to end up fighting for a play-in again and doing all of this. So right. I think you had to leave him out if you were serious about it, because to rock that boat, where he would have stood. I mean, no matter what we've talked about when it comes to Laker trades, AD and LeBron were off the table. It was so much off the table that it was not even a thought to ever look at, hey, can I get one of these guys? If anything, it would have been on the Lakers to say, all right, we got to go in a different direction. Let's move. And most people would have said, let's just move Bron, because AD is still 31. Bron is 40. He's got a year or two left. He's had us in a clutch hold for a little while now. Most people were like, if you move one, you move Bron, but you're not going to do that as the Lakers because of legacy and reputation and all those things that they hold value to. But to think that, I think Jason Kidd had a huge role to play in this. I think Kidd went, when they said, look, I'm tired of the Luka experiment, Kidd, who do you want? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the first name that came up. Because if you look, he does it all. He can shoot the ball. He can defend. Arguably defensive player of the year. You know what I mean? There are so many small intangibles, even as a big. He runs the floor better than most. He can bring the ball up. He started out as a point guard when he was young. Like, there are things that, for all the criticism we give him, and came back to street clothes. Okay, we're past that. He's been more durable than almost anybody on the team. So
who knew? Who knew?
Yeah,
I didn't see that coming in.
For sure.
And I'm going to throw this.
And you lose him at the height of that.
At his absolute apex. Think about it. Again, 42 and 23 in his last outing as a Laker.
And it's been relatively.
And you move away. I'm not understanding this. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not sold.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this though, and I'm gonna throw this out there, because I think that LeBron James is not gonna want to end his career like this. We know he expressed he wanted to retire a Laker and everything. Could you see a time where after this season, because he gets salty and says, I want to be traded, and he goes to play with Steph? Do you think that could happen? Because I think that this changes everything. Because the Lakers clearly put a line in the sand, like, that's it. We've done with it. We've moved past you. You don't really have that clout, and you're going to know for sure after the end of the season.
Nothing is off limits.
Well, and that, you know what? This is going to be the telltale sign. We'll see what happened with Brownie after the season. That's going to tell me if somehow that's going to let me know. That's going to say, you know what? that either LeBron James has expressed his feelings towards it and feels like, you know what, this isn't the way I wanted it to end, at least with a fighting chance, and he can't do that with Luka at this time. I don't care because it's to create, like you said, what are you going to do with Austin? LeBron James, he's still going to have the ball. He's not ready to give the ball up. Yeah, I don't care if it's Luka there, but Luka needs the ball in his hand too. So, but you still have no big man, and you're not going to get any type of compensation for that for anything like AD. So, what's going to happen? And we know in the West, to go through the West, you have to have somewhat of a pretty decent, skilled big man and play defense. So, with all that being said, I don't see it for the next two. I mean, you look, a trade could happen next year. Maybe there's a trade on the horizon that we don't know about and nobody's really looking at. Because with a move like this, like you said, we have to believe that there has to be something else coming along with this. Because if not, then it is very clear. And if I'm LeBron, I might as well, hey, let me go over there. I'm still in the West Coast. Let me go ahead and play with Steph. Let me see, can I win one last chip with Steph? Because look at the same predicament for Steph. Man, he's in his 30s. He's having to play so many minutes and put up so many shots just to give his team a chance. Why not go play with LeBron? Let's see, can they make one last hurrah and pull it in? I think that's the move after this season.
Let us I'm sorry, but let us not ignore the fact that Steph has quietly been very disenchanted in Golden State.
Yeah.
Like we can't overlook that. And also, listen, let's say for the sake of argument, Luka Doncic turns out to be everything we thought he was and more. Right now at midseason, you've pretty much jeopardized the progress. You pretty much thrown away all the progress you've made with the roster that you had before his arrival. And
in the toilet.
It'll take a while for you to get back in sync. I mean, you literally have to figure out how he plays with this team, with LeBron James. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a big question mark. We don't even know. And I think right now, Anthony Davis right now, you can plop him in that lineup and they can hit the ground running. I can't say the same for Luka at this point. But hopefully, him being in LA, for again, an international superstar is the motivation that he needs to take it serious. Because whatever he loses in Dallas in terms of a long-term super max contract, I mean, I don't think he loses it as much as we think he does. He is in a bigger market where he can more than make up for it.
Moved in a different way.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be endorsements and all of those
things. But that's
things.
contingent upon his play and his availability, of course. Oh, man. Yeah. The Lakers are about to sell a ton of jerseys. If nothing else, they get out of this deal.
My mind is going all over the place now. The more I think about this, the more I think about potential moves in the offseason. This is going to be wild because I don't know if Dallas keeps AD. Or
offseason, we still got 4 more days for the trade deadline. We don't know what might be coming down the pipeline.
Let's just say, I mean, man, but
that's one thing I will give the Lakers credit for is they actually held on to one of those first-round draft picks. I can't believe that.
Yeah. And years past,
again, it took 4 or 5 to get Rudy Gobert, and you got Luka Doncic on one.
Yeah, that was just, but
and
honestly,
an AD.
Yeah, that was just.
I mean, that was just bad.
That was just some poor GM work. Like Utah, straight up, just
bad.
got they got played out straight up.
The fact that you held on to one, if you now you have to think everybody's in place, so you might see a deal where because where they're going to struggle is LeBron is slower, so where he was a great defender, that's gone. So really, the only defender on the team now is who? Dorian Finney-Smith.
Oh, wow.
Jared Vanderbilt.
And
Jared Vanderbilt. Those two.
And he plays sparingly. So, like, what difference can he really make?
He's just now getting back, and you just have to hope that he can stay back. But that's it. Austin Reeves, not so much. Right? Jackson Hayes is a big guy. He's a good rim runner, but he's more prone to picking up fouls than blocks. So, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like, man. That's going to be interesting. But to your point, we still got days left. We got a few days left. I just feel like you have to have something else lined up.
There's got to be a plan. There's got to be a plan.
To hold on to that pick and say, well, we'll get rid of the pick in the summer, I don't even think it's worth it at that. But like, because what monumentally do you have to trade now?
But see, I think that the Lakers were all but tapped out until this game. I don't think that they were going to do it. I think they were going to just go ride the season out. And then
see if they could add a big to appease AD.
Yeah, and just go with it, win or lose. And then after that,
figure
then
it
they
out.
can start assessing it and starting over, right? But this fell in their lap.
Yeah.
And then they figured, well, we got to pull the trigger now. We have to mortgage, because it wasn't to them. See, if LeBron James were about 2-3 years younger, this wouldn't have happened. They would have been like, but because he is, in his 40s, now it is what it is. You can't think LeBron James right now. If you look at him and you look at his play, I was going to say this, and I know it's going to be unpopular what I was going to say. It's the gift and the curse. We got Bron, but we got the old Bron now. Defensively. So he's good. He's still
been
one
that
of the
Bron
greatest
for a
passers.
number of seasons now.
Right. But I'm saying it's part of the issue that we're having is that we can't play defense, and he plays a role into that. But you weren't going to just say, hey, let's just to get better defensively, we had to get rid of Bron. Because think about this. I think it would be a disservice for the Lakers if they allowed him to leave and not retire a Laker. I just don't think they need that. That's not the look. But it's
That's not the way
them.
they do things either. But at the same time,
we're in a different era, clearly, because I've never seen the Lakers ever give up. But then again, it was circumstantial, so I get it. But we're gonna find out, because I heard about a tweet that LeBron was like, I know you fucking lying or something like that. Like that was he tweeted that. But I don't know if it was in response to someone saying he had something to do with it, or at the end of the day,
in response to the trade, and he had a clown emoji, like whatever. So
really?
Story has broke.
Really?
Story has broke that right after Rob Pelinka had to make 3 calls. One was to AD, Bron, JJ Redick, and I'm like, so what might get real interesting is how Bron reacts to not being at the forefront of this and finding out, apparently while he was at dinner with his family, that the trade had gone through and not. So that might play a wrinkle into this too, because the other side of that is where it's like, so that's what we're doing?
That's unheard of for the Laker brass. Since LeBron has been on that team, like he's been involved in every decision that they've made. He's been,
that'll be the first
he's been the catalyst in most cases. Like,
so the last time this happened, he was or anything remotely to where he didn't have, the leverage that he really wanted or used to have, was in Miami towards the end when he left, and that was just Pat Riley, which is a whole nother conversation. That's how that's how they do things. That's business as usual over there. But you think about the Lakers. Right. You think about the Lakers and what's going on right now. It wouldn't shock me if LeBron doesn't request a trade, because I think at this point they're looking at LeBron as, hey, we need you to roll, as a rollover and to coach old boy up, coach the youngin up until you leave. LeBron,
like regimen,
right,
in shape, introduce him to how he sustained this 40 years, and
But you got to put yourself in LeBron's shoes. I think I can still compete and we can still win. What are you doing? You see what I'm saying? So that frustration, it wouldn't shock me if the frustration doesn't start to set in with LeBron, and knowing that like your season is over. So do we just go for the numbers? Which, I mean, I don't know what else you can really get that that makes any sense. I mean, you're going to keep shooting the ball. I mean, think about this. With AD, because the little injury was out, LeBron James and the rest of the team was still playing well, and we were meshing, and it was, I thought, okay, we can hold this line until AD comes back in and we'll get to going, and this happens. That's why I have to believe, like all the rest of us believe, it has to be something in the wings. It has to be a trade that's still yet to happen, or something.
Shoot a fall today or tomorrow, because I'm just like, you can't compete without any bigs. With Jackson Hayes and Jared Vanderbilt, that's like you've in essence punted on the season.
Yeah.
Whatever good you go, you're gonna go from 5th to 9th. You know what I mean? Just because sheerly out of one, we don't know if Jared Vanderbilt. I love his energy. I love him as a defender, but he's barely gotten back into the rotation, so you don't even know if he's gonna be able to make it. Like I like Hayes. I think he's a good kid, good energy, but he needed somebody like an AD to play alongside.
Yes, he did.
And not having that, it's gonna be interesting. But even this story now, just looking it up, it said, according to ESPN, Pelinka made 3 calls, one to Anthony Davis with JJ Redick on the phone. Then they called Rich Paul. Then they called LeBron. So based on
LeBron was the last to get a phone call.
they were not involved in this at all.
At
This was
Not
a
even Rich Paul
Mm.
as the agent. So, and then when it comes on the Dallas side, Harrison called and left a message and a text to Doncic, and they haven't talked. So,
that is bad.
there's something there bigger than we know for sure. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is unlike the Lakers, man, to not consult LeBron, for him not to have any say, for LeBron not to wield any influence over the Lakers' decisions.
Yeah, man.
We are in new territory. Like, again, this may very well signal the end of LeBron's tenure in LA. Maybe. I mean, listen, there's still a window. There is still a window they can be competitive, at least for this season.
It's not about competitive. It all depends on did JJ help make this decision, because that's going to be a problem.
Doesn't sound like he had much input himself.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because they called AD together. I'm saying is, I understand as the owner, they're going to put the coach on, but I'm saying is, if LeBron finds out that JJ helped in making this decision, that's going to feel like betrayal, because we know that the whole podcast, the whole show that he did to basically get JJ hired, and then you did this to me. Because he's basically saying, Bron, I don't have faith in you like that. It's time to go a different direction. I don't have faith in you. It's tone deaf. Like, the voice of LeBron in the building is dead now. It's mute. He has none anymore, and they're fully treating him like anyone else now, not as the star. None of that. They're saying, LeBron, you've been good. You got paid for it. Here's your, we helped your son out, but it's time to move on. Because think about that too. We did that with all the backlash of drafting your son. And now they feel like we don't owe you anything. Not even a chance at one more championship. Wow. Yeah. And that would speak to a lot of things. I mean, now you have to start to question, did they ever fully view you as a Laker? You know what I mean? Like, that starts wondering, did they ever view you? Because listen, if this was Kobe, they wouldn't have done it. I don't care. I don't believe it under one. I don't think they would have done it. I don't think, because Kobe is so beloved, and rightfully so, that even at that, unless you could listen, you make a move to give Kobe one last hurrah. You're not going to take away because if Kobe can compete and we can make the playoffs, we have a shot in his eyes. And to take that away, Kobe be so livid. I can see Kobe's face if he was LeBron. I can see that his disdain for this move, to the point where he wouldn't be quiet. He'd be,
maybe
on the news.
Maybe.
I think so.
Maybe not. But
so?
Also, Kobe has more cachet as a lifetime Laker. So
that's
one.
I don't think
it's not just because he's Kobe, but also too. Right. I don't know if that's true. I mean, a 40-year-old Kobe, who knows what that looks like? A 30-something-year-old Kobe was pretty much done for by the end. I mean, with the exception of that last push against Utah in his last game, like he didn't have a lot more of those left in the tank, if any. But maybe the Lakers just got tired. Yeah, maybe the Lakers just got tired of being at the beck and call of LeBron James and having him being able to wield the influence and the. I mean, he's been able to swing his weight around. He's been able to throw his on the table and get his way. Right. And maybe they got tired of being up under that. Maybe it was that simple as well. And for a 40-year-old man to have the demands of LeBron, I mean, LeBron comes with a lot. Let's keep it a bean. He comes with a lot. You got to be fully invested in the LeBron James business.
Yeah.
And that can be a lot for a team to have to turn over that amount of control to a player who, at 40, again, the window is closing. This may very well be the last chance the Lakers have to really do anything significant, if they can this year. But I mean, now you got to do it with Luka. We'll see how that works. I mean, but I say that also. Again, we've hinted and we've just, I mean, as we've mentioned on several times during the show, like the Lakers they found a stride. So maybe that wasn't the case, but they certainly weren't as strong as those top four teams in the West. I don't think they weren't an obstacle to them, at least to me, in my mind's eye, when it comes down to postseason play. I could be wrong though. We'll never really know what that team has constructed.
Be interesting. This will be a story that continues to roll as the days go on. I wouldn't be surprised if we talk for the next couple of weeks, because there's stories still coming out about both Bron and Luka being blindsided by this. And so there's going to be some must-see TV in the NBA. If they've done nothing else for these next couple of weeks, they have shifted the focus back to them
Definitely.
and what this all looks like, how this plays out. I think they play the Mavericks on the 25th at home. So there's going to be some things going on when it comes to that. Yeah, for
I think they
sure.
have like 2 more meetings this season or something like
Yep.
that. So that should be really
Yeah.
eventful.
Yeah, there is. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean, I can't wait for Monday morning. This is going to be full sessions. Like, forget the script. Let's just. It's just it's so explosive to the point where no one can wrap their hand, because this is. I mean, it's historical in a way. Like, by all accounts, to see somebody like of '80s caliber move like that, albeit for a 25 year old superstar. It doesn't, even then, it still doesn't come. He wasn't LeBron's age. He's older, but he's not LeBron old yet. So, yeah, I'm just going to sit back and wait for everything to unfold and more information to come out. And,
Yeah.
we'll be having this conversation
The
again
Lakers,
with some updated info. Right.
The Lakers most certainly must have saw greener pastures with Luka Doncic, but also, I mean, at least from their mind's eye. But what I will say is, I'm willing to bet. I don't have any sources in the NBA. I'm not about to Chris Broussard you with the multiple sources, but I'd be willing to bet bottom dollar there's another big move coming down the pipeline before the trade deadline. I'd be willing to bet that. I don't know for certain. I don't have any insiders again, but it does not seem like the Lakers don't have any more plans. So, but
for sure,
we'll keep track of all the latest development. You'll definitely hear about it. It may not be this seismic of an event, but it will be an event. There will be something. There will be more added to that Laker roster in the days to come. At least,
I don't know.
hopefully.
I will say this. I've never been so confused and so upset as a Laker fan to a trade.
As a basketball fan, this is a hell of a head scratcher.
I mean, long term, I get it, and I should be saying, man, we got a top 3 player right now for the future. He's young. Yeah, I should be jumping for joy, but I'm not, and I'm just trying to sift through all these emotions as a Laker fan, right? So, still L gang though, but damn, man.
I mean, best wishes to. I mean, to be honest, best case scenario works out for both of us. They get what they want, we get what we want long term.
Yeah,
and ends up being a historical trade that finishes well for both teams.
Yeah.
So we'll have to look at that. But it's crazy because just keeping on the Lakers, and last time we recorded was right there on the cusp of Kobe's 5-year anniversary in terms of him passing in that tragic helicopter crash with the other pilot, women, children, players on his team, parents involved. I mean, that was a day that not nearly in the same way as reading kind of this trade, but I remember that day, and I just want to ask you guys, what do you remember about that day? Because I remember that day vividly, but I'd like to start with what you guys remember about it.
I remember, first and foremost, the setting and the energy. It was a whole lot of confusion going on. We were just at the beginning of COVID. It was just starting to peek its head, even though it was around, but it was just peeking its head to where we're starting to realize that there's an issue on the horizon that's going to be trouble. And I remember the day. I just remember watching TV. I'm sitting there watching TV and breaking news. But before that, actually, let me go back. You start seeing on social media. And I remember there were talks about it. Not only was him, because we didn't know about the daughter and other people. We first heard Kobe. Then by the time we got done, Rick Fox was on the plane, on the helicopter as well, things like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember there was just this in the air. It was just the big unknown about just in general what was going on in society. And I think a lot of us were already worried. The NBA was going through its issues due to, COVID coming on the rise, and the uncertainty of the country because, who the president was and the controversy behind that. And boom, you start getting, confirmation that, yeah, there was an accident. And, matter of fact, it was so fresh. Remember, the helicopter was still smoking when people were going over the hill and they were rushing to there. And I just couldn't believe it because I'm like, Kobe, remember, he was just coming off the award for his Kobe's Muse. I mean, we were just getting into seeing Kobe outside of basketball, and it was very.
Softer side, yeah.
It was not only softer, but he was great
NBA
at it.
Kobe,
I mean, he was had some great things.
Mm-hmm.
And that day when it happened, I just remember sitting there, not wanting to believe it. Like he's going to be okay. Somehow they made it out. And then you start hearing reports about no, his daughter was in there, and that's when my heart sank because I'm a father. I have a daughter, and we all have children. We all have daughters, and there's something about all our children, but there's something about your daughter, and to have that relationship that you have with your daughter. Oddly enough, we we all have one. So that makes it even more special that we have one daughter, and to hear about that, I don't get emotional over entertainers and sports players usually, but that one really struck a nerve where my eyes started to water, and I was just like, not Kobe, like not to if not saying I wanted to be someone else, but not Kobe. Like we just come in. You know what? It seemed like it was just when that happened. It would seem like it was just yesterday. He went off in his final game and had arguably the greatest final game ever in sports history.
It's not a debate. It's not arguable.
No, right.
It was the greatest. Yeah.
And I'm just watching the news, and you're starting to see, people call in. You're starting to see people flood the timelines, and people are crying, especially in Los Angeles, obviously, because he is Mr. Los Angeles. He's the Lakers. That's, if anyone, as much as I love Magic, Kobe is that guy. And even from an international standpoint, I just remember man, I have to sit down for a second because I was home, had the knee surgery. And I mean, honestly, it still feels unreal now because it's been 5 years, but I just watched online. I saw a thing of Kobe playing as a Rucker, and it just went back like, man, we really lost him. If anyone that felt close like he was a family member, it was Kobe. And I can't say I've ever felt that way about any entertainer by a stretch. And the fact that, that infamous, day when we're watching it on TV and you're looking at it live, there's something else to look at it live versus watching it and them talking about it in past tense, because everything was fresh and all this information is still coming in, and you see the helicopter because it looked just like a hill when they showed it. It looked like I'm like, it didn't make any sense. Like, wait a minute, so you thought maybe it was low and it kind of clipped something that went down. They're going to be okay, but when the reports came in and said, not only him, and then they dropped the bomb about his daughter. My man, I got cramps in my stomach. To lose, obviously, no one's going to feel it like his wife and children and his family. But as for us to be fans, to be Kobe lovers, and for that to happen, man, it's kind of indescribable because even though we were dealing with all we were dealing with in the country, it was oddly still like a good looking day. It felt okay. It was okay in LA. I'll say it like this: it was hearing about, and this is to a lesser degree, obviously. It was like hearing about Nipsey Hussle being killed times 10. It was an eerie day. It was a good day. Even like, we're talking about, weather-wise, it was a good day. And then bam, you get hit with that news. And it just, it still seems surreal. Long live Kobe, because 5 years it flew by like that. And oddly enough, we had just started the podcast around that time. We were just getting it going. And oddly enough, we restarted on his anniversary. And oddly enough, look who's the president again. I mean, it's man, what goes around comes right back around. I mean, it just this time, we were just doing his anniversary. So, long live
Kobe.
You, Ree? Man.
For me, it was I don't even recall now what I was doing that day. I was getting ready to go to work. I was running around preparing for something other than, and I was frustrated by some shit that was going. I guess the day just wasn't going my way. So I was already kind of in a pissy mood. I come home, make a pit stop before I head to work. And I believe I was like packing my lunch, or I was bagging lunch that my wife made for me. And she's sitting on the couch. She's like, "Ree, did you hear?" I'm like, hear what? And she's like, I don't know if it's true because, you get these hoaxes every so often. Some major celebrity dying in some tragic way. I can't count how many Will Smith death hoaxes I've heard over the years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why he's always the center of the death hoaxes. That's an interesting one to me. But I was really upset that day, and it was already kind of a black cloud over my day, over nothing really major, obviously. And she told me Kobe's helicopter went down. They said he died. And at that point, I was so wrapped up in whatever I was into, and I just wasn't willing to accept it. It just didn't. It was just so out of the blue that I just couldn't accept it. I'm like, nah, maybe you might want to check your sources, make sure you're not hearing it from social media, because people are quick to parrot misinformation on social media. That's kind of the hallmark of social media, and that's unfortunately that's just what it is. So I'm like, make sure it's not on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, what have you. And oddly enough, I told her, like, and I hate that we live in a day and age where TMZ is like the most credible source, especially when it comes to celebrity death.
They're Michael Jackson. They got their status.
Hey, they broke that story, and that gave them all the cachet we needed to give them. Like they earned it. And ever since then, they've been spot on. Like, so
for sure,
when you go check TMZ, if they have it on their website and they've reported it, it's true. You can bank on that. But I'm getting ready, and I just wasn't ready. And I remember, like, I kind of waved her off, like, I don't have time for that right now. I can't even process. I can't begin to get into that when I'm already having a bad day. Like, that would really turn it go from sunshine to shit real quick. And I got to go into work. I'm trying to get my attitude up so I can deal with the day. When I hear that news, and those who know me know that I might play like I'm made of steel, but I'm really sentimental. And I can be really emotional. And unlike my brother, I'm affected by entertainers who I've enjoyed, especially with somebody like me who doesn't enjoy a whole lot. I tend to dislike more than I actually like. So when I like something and it's become a part of my life and I lose it, I take it pretty hard. And for me, again, you have to know me to understand, like, I had just gotten over the death of one of my favorite rappers, MF Doom, who was like really an icon to me. I was just kind of reeling from that death. And it was like, Kobe too, like, I'm losing everybody. It seemed so personal, like I was losing family members. And quite frankly, I had been losing family members too around that time. We had lost two of my closest uncles in the years before. So, like, it had been a string of losses. COVID was just looming. It hadn't quite become the worldwide pandemic that it would turn out to be, but it was certainly at our doorsteps at that time. And we couldn't avert it. It wasn't like a crisis, any kind of crisis or pandemic before, where we hear about it somewhere in China or somewhere in Europe, but it doesn't quite make its way to the United States and the numbers that it's affecting them. This time it was real. We were facing shutdowns. I remember hearing about the shutdowns, and I was wondering, what does that actually mean? How do you shut down a state? Like, I've never seen this before in my lifetime. And we've lived through some crazy shit. We were old enough to remember the riots vividly, being in the center of them, which is probably one of my biggest life events. The LA riot was a big deal. At 12, 13 years old, you think the world is ending. It feels like the apocalypse. But this day it was a bad day already. I got the news, and it wasn't until I got to work and I had some downtime that everybody's coming in talking about it. People who don't know the first thing about basketball.
Yeah.
They couldn't pick a basketball out of a lineup of balls. They couldn't distinguish it from a volleyball. You hear about Kobe. Oh my God, it's so sad, Kobe. And it's all the talk. And I had kind of avoided all that talk until I got a chance to really process it and sit down. And when I finally did, it was just like, I couldn't accept it for a couple of days. It didn't even sink in. It wasn't real. Like, there's no way. This is just not. And one of my first thoughts, oddly, I hate to admit this, I heard about Rick Fox being on the plane. And I remember thinking, like, God bless Kobe, but Rick Fox seemed like such a nice dude. Like, God forbid he suffered that ending, that fate. Like, as bad as it is for Kobe, like, not that I dislike Kobe or anything. It was just like, Rick Fox has always been seemingly such a genuinely nice dude. You know what I mean? Like a good character. Again, not to say Kobe wasn't. Yeah. And the other thought was, I hope and pray none of his kids were on that helicopter with him.
Yep.
That was my biggest concern. I said, Kobe's lived his life. And I think the reason why we were so affected by it, when it finally sank in and it hit me, and the day of his actual memorial, is when it really just like, that was the finality of it. Like, man, this is real. Kobe is gone. We won't get to see Kobe make an appearance on Inside the NBA with Chuck and Kenny and Charles, Chuck and Kenny and Kenny and whatever. I can't think of his name right now. I felt like we were robbed of something. We were robbed of watching Kobe in his next phase of life after post NBA. But also, I think it hit me hard because we are Kobe's peers, and we tend to forget that we grew up with Kobe. When he came to the league, we were about his age. We're roughly about a year and a half, 2 years behind Kobe. But Kobe was the first superstar and icon that I grew up with. I think Shaq, I mentioned to Robert a million times why Shaq was significant to me when I was younger, like in my preteen years, because he was the first superstar who came into superstardom. I watched him literally from college to his very last game. And I know we're old enough to remember Jordan, obviously, but I wasn't fully present for the Jordan era completely. We both caught him on that second half of his career. We were old enough to fully remember Michael Jordan, but we got to watch Kobe and Shaq come into the league and become who they are, become the icons who they were. And Kobe being our peer, that really stung when it hit me. I've always been a fan of Kobe and his play. I can't say that I was always a big fan of the man who Kobe was, but I also didn't know him. So there's that. Take that for what you will. But I didn't really understand his impact until he died. And I got to feel like, I feel like I know Kobe better now, the man. I have a better understanding of who he is than I did when he was in the NBA, when he was actually winning championships, when he was at the height of his career. I feel like I have a better understanding for him now. So yeah, that day will unfortunately live in infamy. I don't like to memorialize death. That's not what we're into. I tried not to.
For sure.
But it was an historical event.
Day.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was very significant.
You just can't. I mean, we can't ignore it. Like, that was a major day. That was a watershed moment for all the wrong reasons for LA, especially in LA sports. I mean, just for sports in general. Again, Kobe transcended all of that. He transcended geography. He transcended sport. I mean, he was a global icon.
In the Philippines and all these other China. Yeah, for sure.
He might be the most,
as if he was around the corner, you know?
Yeah.
They loved him more than we did over in Asia. So, but that day was something else. What was it like for you, Chris?
So for me, I remember I was waking up, and really was just going to be a slow average day. And as I was getting out of bed, for whatever reason, I had been in bed longer than I normally am. And I got a text from my cousin. He said, "Did you see the news?" And I'm like, "No, what happened?" He's like, "Kobe died." And I think my reply was like, "Kobe who?" Like, to process Kobe Bryant as being the one who is dead, is like, nah, that man's going to live to 95. He's going to win a few more Academy Awards, couple, who knows what that resume is going to look like. He'll be 90, before he's gone. And so I looked and I was like, huh? So I cut the TV on. I start typing immediately, Kobe Bryant death and everything. And sure enough, it came back. And at first I was like, no way. That's crazy that somebody we saw give his all on this court is gone. And then it became Rick Fox. Then it became the news. And I was struggling with it, but it was like, Kobe's kind of that weird athlete because he feels like the famous distant cousin you're related to, but he's never at the family events. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, we share a bloodline, and that's his. He had that feel to him, and I think it's because we grew up in that time where he was a couple years older, and so we always felt connected to him. But I remember as more and more news when I found out it was his daughter with him, I started to cry, and I didn't even recognize what was happening. I looked at my shirt and felt and was like, oh, those are tears. And it was in such a weird mental space where it was like to process that. And I think why that hurt so much is because you remember them sitting courtside in the orange, hoodie and or the green, and just remembering them sitting there courtside, and you just knew this was his next chapter in life. She was going to be significant. The fact that he took over that team and they were getting spanked. And so even from like a coaching perspective, but I remember I stayed in bed the rest of the day, for the majority of the day. And I struggled with the fact of, as more details came out, they were found together holding each other. And it was more and more that just made it so much harder. And I remember thinking, you truly don't know how much time you have. You really don't know how their story is going to play out. You know, it immediately reminded me of my grandmother losing her in a car accident. And for as a devout Christian woman she was, and I just never thought that fate. So there were so many emotions rolled into that. But as you saw the outpouring, you realized how the Mamba mentality, for example, took over the world and how it transcended. And the more and more these people told stories of like at 19, 20, 21, we're going to the club. We trying to get rid of this money. Kobe is in the gym like, I'll see y'all in the morning.
Yeah.
By morning, I mean 3 a.m. And you're like, to have that much drive and to know how much he sacrificed to accomplish his goal, but then was equally ready to sacrifice walking away from the game entirely to make sure that he was everything he couldn't be for his family while he was playing, and for him to not get that chance and to not see that relationship with his daughter materialize and see that next Bryant in basketball. I think that was hurtful too. And Bear, to your point, you know, having kids, having daughters, knowing what those relationships are like is like I mean, even talking about it now, you still feel like, man, that's that's a lot. Even you know, losing the uncles, we both lost. It's weird how we just were so intertwined in that time frame. Lost an uncle to COVID, and it was just like this. This is just a time that you will never forget. But I remember that day. If I close my eyes, I remember I didn't expect to cry, and I think that's what kind of threw me off for a little bit, where I was like, man, this really hurt you in a way that you didn't realize. But for all that we had saw from him, for how we grew up, I mean, even Kobe the man, as conflicted as that was for some, I appreciated as a married man how he went and fought for his marriage and how he was able to repair that, and how I was like, you know, there's layers to this man where he will not lose. Like I was wrong, and I'm gonna get my wife back, and I'm gonna make this work. And sure enough, he did. And I think there were so many layers to him that you got to see. He just wasn't willing to lose at whatever it took. And I think that's such an admirable thing. He wasn't into excuses either. You know what I mean? He'd be the first one you listen to teammates and be like, yeah, that man will come steal his shoes back. Like, you don't deserve to have my name on your feet. Give me my shoes. I'm like, that's wild. But it reminded us that the time that you have here is precious, and you can leave a lasting impact far beyond your days. And I think Kobe did that. So I think that's kind of how I'll wrap up my thoughts. But yeah, you know, you look at Kobe quotes, there's just an essence of him, seeing the two statues now in front of the crypto.com, which will forever be staples to me. You know what I mean? And to know there's more coming. But yeah, I mean, Kobe,
I'll say
that's significant.
That one thing that stuck out too, which was so heartbreaking, was seeing TNT and become the NBA of TNT and seeing Shaq break down. That was like, you know, because Shaq is just always this, you know, tough person, and to see him just start to talk about Kobe, and then he just couldn't hold it. It was, you know, it was rough, even, you know, because of course it's emotional. And how the heart is just, man, you know, these guys were teammates, you know, obviously they had like a public, you know, spat with each other, but that you could tell was always like, we're brothers just not getting along right now, but if we still love each other. And we were just robbed, you know, because I thought Kobe, he was just a true winner, like you said, Chris, and everything he had done in life, and he fought for it. So that's why I would urge everybody to go ahead and check out. I believe it's a CNN doc, like a docu series called "The Making of a Legend," and it's interesting because there's never been seen before footage that we've never seen from when he was a child in Italy playing and stepping up, and how, you know, you saw a different side of Kobe, and you noticed and knew early on there's something that we didn't see and know. He held on to winning, and to winning that first championship was deeper than just him loving the game. They quoted saying it was his way of restoring his father's name in the NBA. So that's what it was, that deep. And you know, I haven't finished watching it, but excuse me, so far it's great because it gives you a lot of insight to him growing up and why Kobe is the way he is. He is that once he made a decision to be in the NBA, it wasn't because he thought he was good. He felt Not only because, and this is the difference, a lot of people felt like I'm ready for the league. He felt that was the only way for me to learn. I couldn't learn from college. I can only learn from it. Most people don't take that approach at his age. They just think, man, I can make some millions of dollars. I can go and play. He said, no, I'm ready to learn from those greats because this is where I'm at. I'm at the level where I need to learn from these guys. And that's very interesting take on it from being a 17, 18-year-old, kid just coming straight out of high school. So
yeah.
Once again, long live Kobe. It's crazy because I saw a text too by Henri, and I saw a text that day when we texted each other, Ree, and you said basically to the notion that you woke up and was going to call off of work because there was something about that day you felt was going to happen. And that's what you texted me that day. So that's crazy, But yeah, man.
Yeah, and I kind of circle back for a minute. I guess to me also, what got to me and why I couldn't process it initially for the first couple of days is, as crazy as this might sound when I say this, I'm sure you'll understand what I mean when I say it though. We're all mortal, and we all have our expiration dates, so to speak. You know what I mean? We will all meet our fate, our ending fate, which is ultimately, our deaths, our demise. Kobe Bryant didn't seem like the dying type. You know what I mean? You just couldn't. He wasn't the dying type. I just thought he would, he'd be here when the earth was, raised and reformed, and you know what I mean? He'd be here with the cockroaches. Like Kobe seemed like one of those guys. And also the fact that, when I realized, like, damn, there are so many parallels between him and I. Well, not many, but at least in a sense, and I wasn't trying to make it about me. It was hard not to reflect on, like, damn.
Yeah. That's why
when I look at Kobe, we're about the same age, and our daughters were the same age. So I'm literally, we're kind of neck and neck in terms of our age and our daughter's age, and then we're just like, damn, just imagine that coming to an end, just at the blink of an eye. You know what I mean? And that's just that's how this shit works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we never get enough time as we think we are, that we should have, or we're going to get. And Kobe was always a reminder that, like, tomorrow's not promised. You know what I mean? The biggest mistake a lot of us make is thinking that we have more time. And that's what we don't have an abundance of. We're not in control of that. But it was that again, like I say. And Kobe just didn't seem like, he just seemed like one of those eternal type of icons and figures that you don't think of him as somebody who would die, especially at the age of 40 something. I at least saw Kobe until he started to gray and wrinkle. But
right.
You're talking about a man who was almost maniacally driven and singularly driven, but he was driven by everything. Whatever he did, Kobe was going to be driven. And like you said, Chris, that determination and that will to win against all odds. I mean, he attacked his marriage with the same tenacity, and he fought for his marriage with the same tenacity that he fought on the court. And also, I was looking forward to, if nothing else, and this is just the selfish part of me, I wanted more detail from Kobe Bryant on ESPN. Like, that was the coolest shit ever. Like, his ability to break down the game. I was looking forward to so much more of that. Kobe breaking down NBA players' individual games, and in the fashion only Kobe Bryant can. You know what I mean? And that real critical mind of his, that critical thinking mind of his. So that'll be missed, obviously, and in legacy of his daughter. We were all robbed of so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, and not to overlook the other families that perished on that fateful day, unfortunately. We can only really address the people that we knew, the figures that stood out to us, that we could connect to. I didn't know these people. I mean, they were, I'm sure their families missed them as much, if not more. They're just as important. They are no less than Kobe and Gianna, but we happen to know Kobe.
Yeah.
So that, but my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by that, obviously. So I'll wrap up.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know what we need to say after that, y'all.
Really. Like, we ain't much more after that. Like that.
Hey,
we wrapped it up.
Not at all.
Put a nice bow on it. We can head out. We can.
I guess we'll watch what develops with the Lakers here. In the next couple of weeks here, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
We out.
We are out. We did our job. Peace, y'all.
Peace.